Mina Aissatou Sise. Today we can you building Ministry of Information and Communication concerning the press briefing where the Ministry of Information and Communication can get every Thursday. Now the Ministry conference room. Now we go inside the conference room for be part of the press briefing where the Ministry of Information and Communication can get.
I'll now invite the Deputy Minister of Information and Communication who will come to give us the usual updates in government. And after that, she will introduce our speakers for today. Thank you.
All right, so for our weekly updates, we'll start from an event that happened this morning at the Ministry of Finance, where the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Jacob Jusu Safa, on behalf of the government of Sierra Leone, today signed a concessional loan agreement of $30 million with the Exim Bank of the People's Republic of China, and a lending agreement between the Ministry of Finance and the Sierra Leone Cable Limited (SALCAB) at the Ministry's conference room in Freetown. The loan agreement for the National Fibre Optic Phase 2 is for a negotiated interest rate of 1% and is expected to be repaid in 15 years after a grace period of a moratorium of 5 years. Also, the Minister of Finance signed a lending agreement with the Managing Director of SALCAB for the implementation of this project. According to the Finance Minister, the burden of repaying the loan will not in any way affect government's budget. According to the Minister of Information, who was also part of the signing ceremony, the socio-economic impact of the project is huge and is expected to create an enabling environment for the development of a digital economy, as well as minimizing the cost of access to broadband services across the country. Phase 2 of the National Fibre Optic project will cover major provincial towns and cities including Kabbalah, Kailaun, Kenema, among others, that were not covered under Phase 1 of the project, the Minister concluded. The Chargé d'Affaires and Political Consular at the Chinese Embassy in Sierra Leone, Wang Zimin, represented the Exim Bank. We have in our midst the director from the Ministry of Information who will answer to questions should they come up on this particular signing program this morning. His Excellency President Julius Maada Bio on Wednesday launched the new National Digital Identity Platform. This platform is Africa's first blockchain and decentralized digital identity implementation and is designed to provide citizens of Sierra Leone with formal identity, control over their credit information, and access to digital financial services. The platform runs on the Kiva protocol, a digital identification system that uses blockchain, a distributed ledger technology, to address two major barriers to accessing financial services and the lack of formal identification and the lack of verifiable credit history. Launching the platform, President Bio said he is proud to note that the new digital identity system is built with clear guidelines on principles of self-sovereignty to protect information from unauthorized access. He maintained that it is Sierra Leoneans who own their data and therefore should decide with whom it is shared. He said that the data on every passing resident in Sierra Leone stored with the NCRE will be protected with strict confidentiality in line with international guidelines and practices. It should be noted that the President made this announcement at the 73rd United Nations General Assembly in September. He promised that this is something he wants to do, and he did it yesterday. That's why we had that event at the Radisson Blu in Freetown. The Ministry of Transport and Aviation, in collaboration with Ministries of Finance, Local Government and Rural Development, today held a meeting with heads of local councils and administrators for the management of the 50 school buses at the Ministry's conference hall here at UE Building at the 7th floor. According to the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Brahma S.B. Kebi, the main purpose of the meeting was to discuss government directives in relation to managing the 50 school buses. He pleaded with local council authorities and their representative management committees to handle the buses with care and to manage them effectively and efficiently. The buses might not be enough to address the huge transportation challenges facing school-going children, but it is a very good start to enhance the free quality education, which is one of the flagship programs of His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada Bio, he added. The school buses are going to be run on a cost recovery basis, and it is expected to be launched on the 13th of September 2019. Sierra Leone is among only 6 West African countries that have met the minimum requirement of fiscal transparency for 2019 as listed by the U.S. State Department's 2019 Fiscal Transparency Report. The annual global report is published based on criteria including having key budget documents that are publicly available, substantially complete, and generally reliable. It also includes an assessment of the transparency of processes for awarding government contracts and licenses for natural resource extraction. Fiscal transparency is a critical element of effective public financial management, helps build market confidence, and underpins economic sustainability. Fiscal transparency fosters greater government accountability by providing a window into government's budgets for citizens, helping citizens hold their leadership accountable, and facilitating better informed public debate. And finally, the International Civil Aviation Authority has commenced the Universal Security Audit Program on Sierra Leone's aviation security systems at the Freetown International Airport in Lunge. The Universal Security Audit Program is geared towards promoting global aviation security through continuous auditing and monitoring of the aviation security performance of Sierra Leone. The audit plan entails a review of national airport level documents, visits to the industry to observe security measures, follow-up activities, and post-audit debriefing. The national briefing session, which took place at the Ministry's Conference Hall in the presence of representatives of the Ministry of Transport and Aviation, Sierra Leone Civil Aviation Authority, Sierra Leone Airports Authority, Board of Airline Representatives, Westminster Aviation Security Services, Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces, and the Sierra Leone Police opened the 10-day audit event. Now we have in our midst the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education. Mr. Alpha Timbo is here with his team of experts from the ministry. We also have Mr. Mumini Jallo of the Ministry of Information on the issue of the signing, the agreement that was signed this morning between the governments of Sierra Leone and the China Exim Bank. So before I go on, let me quickly just remind us that it is about a year now since the Free Quality Education Program was launched by His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada Bio to enhance the human development capital in the country. Over 1.5 million school children are expected to benefit from the Free Quality School Education Initiative, which was rolled out about a year ago in September last year. This flagship initiative that was launched at the Miata Conference Hall in Freetown on Monday, 20th August, was part of the government's initiative under the leadership of the President that will ensure increased access to government-assisted schools for all children from pre-primary to secondary levels across the country. With support from donor partners including UK Aid, World Bank, Irish Aid, World Food Programme, and UNICEF, the free education program was phased over 5 years and will waive the payment of tuition and admission fees. So like I mentioned, it's about a year now that this program was rolled out, and the minister is here to give us an update on where we are, the successes that we've been able to score, what are the challenges in this all-important initiative. So ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, I'd like to invite the minister, Alpha Timbo Esquire, the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, to please come to the podium and give us an update 1 year on. Thank you, Mr. Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. My members of staff in the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education who are here, can you please stand up so that you can be identified? Mr. Toure here is the Secretary TSC, Mr. Sheriff and Mr. Toure, and Bami Anthony, the Communications Unit in the Ministry, and Mr. So there is the Head of the Public-Private Partnership in the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education. We have other activities. The Deputy Minister is at State House right now, attending a meeting with the Chief Minister and others on the examination malpractices. Can you please sit down? And my coordinator for the Pre-Quality School Education Program is currently concluding the Education Partnership Group meeting, which I was chairing a few minutes ago before I came here. So a lot of activities are taking place. Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. This is an opportunity to meet with the brains of Sierra Leone, members of the Fourth Estate, no doubt, in terms of recognizing the work that you have been doing. We want to say thank you very much for your contribution in helping to shape our development agenda. Today, I'm here to give you an update on what we have done as a government since the launch of the Pre-Quality School Education Program by His Excellency the President on the 20th of August last year. The program itself was launched on the 20th of August, but the commencement date was on the 17th of September 2018. Yes, it was part of the commitment, the manifesto commitment of the new direction to launch the Pre-Quality School Education Program. And in our manifesto, a lot of issues are mentioned in the manifesto. But as a government, when the President launched the Pre-Quality School Education Program, he was very clear in what he intended to do, because we believe, considering the state of affairs in the country at the material point in time, we decided to phase the program. So the first phase of the Pre-Quality School Education Program was what was launched on the 20th of August 2018. And significant pronouncements were made there by His Excellency the President. I just want to summarize some of them. The first pronouncement he made was that he was going to abolish admission and tuition fees for government and government-assisted schools. And please note that government and government-assisted schools. Secondly, government was going to undertake the responsibility of payment for the NPSC, the BECE, and the WAS examinations, including the NPQ, that is the technical and vocational education. Then thirdly, His Excellency also promised that he was going to supply the core textbooks for English language, mathematics, integrated science, and social studies to all pupils attending government and government-assisted schools. And he was also going to ensure that teaching and learning materials are supplied also to these government and government-assisted schools. He promised also that the school feeding program was going to be strengthened, and it was going to commence in areas that originally were not benefiting from the school feeding program, amongst others. So those are the significant pronouncements that are made by His Excellency President. All of it are taken from the manifesto as part of our commitment. There are other issues mentioned in the manifesto, but these constituted the first part. And why did we decide to put as a matter of priority those that the President decided to pronounce at that material point in time? Simple. Because as a government, there are other competing priorities. But then the first thing that the President did was to ensure that 21% of the budget of government was allocated to education. And that was a significant decision that was made by government. So as a ministry, we decided to put practical measures to ensure that what the President pronounced was going to be achieved. So we looked at the education sector plan, and we dissected it, and we came out with 3 components for the implementation of the Pre-Quality School Education Program. The first has to do with access, equity, and completion. The second has to do with the quality of the system, the relevance, as well as the integrity of the education system itself. And the third aspect has to do with system strength, in which is education governance. So on the first aspect of access, equity, and completion, what was done during this particular period in time? To ensure access, the President ensured that all pupils attending government and government-assisted schools did not pay admission fees as well as tuition fees. This was substituted by the payment of school fees subsidies, because if pupils are asked not to pay fees, then it means the schools cannot run if they are not provided with the relevant finances. So that was substituted by school fees subsidies. As I speak, the first term school fees subsidies was about 35 billion. The second 40, and the third term fees last year was almost 45 billion. So it's a total of about 125 billion that was spent in school fees subsidies. This was paid to the various government and government-assisted schools. So as I speak, any government and government-assisted school that could come up to say they did not receive that, I would want to get that from members of the 4th State as a result of their various findings that you have conducted. But that was done. And the reason is simple. We discovered that for just maybe 5,000-10,000, many parents cannot send their children to school. And I'm emphasizing this because yesterday I had the opportunity of being at 98.1, and people are saying whether it should not have been the teachers first before the first intervention that we did. So, free admission, non-payment of school fees, that was the first thing that was done, and I can say that was accomplished. The second aspect that has to do with school feeding is also an aspect that will promote access. It is very clear from the researches that have been conducted that schools where school feeding is being carried attracts more enrollment than those schools where there is no school feeding. And it may interest you to know, when the school feeding started, when they are feeding pupils stagnated days, that is to say sometimes Monday, Thursday, you find out that the pupils will ask, they are going to cook today? So when once they say they are not cooking, some of them will not come to school. So we decided to ensure that cooking is carried out in all the school days. So that has attracted huge enrollment. Like my sister mentioned, when initially we started the pre-quality school education, the enrollment was about 1 million. Now it is about 2,617,000 in terms of. So there is a huge impact as far as this the free quality school education program is concerned. Then also, the reason why government said you are going to pay the NPSC, Becker and WAS, because we find out that the completion rate over the years was reduced as a result of the fact that parents cannot afford to pay the NPSC fees, and where some of them manage to pay, when it comes to Becker, sometimes they cannot afford, and some of them, sometimes at the WAS, they cannot afford. So taking a strategic decision to ensure that those fees are paid, ensure the issue of progression and completion. Hence, the first component that we said, access, equity, and completion. The equity there is quite different from equality. And we are journalists, I will not proceed to explain that particular aspect, but what I'm saying here is pupils with disabilities, they are all also covered, what I'm saying here. To enable us to fast track the issue of admission, government undertook the construction of a number of schools last academic year. So as I speak, we are able to build almost about 127 schools where we had acute accommodation problems, so as for us to be able to ameliorate that one. And we received that, apart from government's financial input, the World Bank, the European Union, as well as the Mercury International and CRS. These are agencies that contributed towards the infrastructural development of the school system. So that is it for access. In terms of access, we took strategic actions to ensure that students have access to school. When it comes to the issue of quality, the relevance as well as the integrity of the system, this is a very important component. And this is where the textbooks that was promised by the president, that is the 4 core textbooks, these were also all supplied. And I want to throw this challenge again, because sometimes we assume to have done certain things, but when people go about to further do investigation, they might find other things. I can confidently see here that all government and government-assisted schools are supposed to receive the 4 textbooks, each to every pupil. So the method of distribution, we had the statistics for the pupils that we are supposed to cover. So when the contracts for the supply of the books was concluded, after the census was concluded, we are able to know in Pujen this is X number of pupils, in Kabara this is X number of pupils, right from the point of production. They are packaged in that particular line. So when they come to the deep water key after inspection, they are sent directly to all our local councils. And this falls in line with the government's commitment in promoting or strengthening decentralization. So the local councils were charged with the responsibility of receiving them. We have copies of our delivery orders, the quantities, and also for the local councils, the principals and head teachers, as well as the head teachers of schools, where they signed to receive those particular books. There are evidences to prove that. So in the event a principal or head teacher of a particular school that is government and government assisted to come up to say he or she has not received, we want to know those schools, maybe through you. But as far as we are concerned, they are supposed to receive all of those. And from this first year, I have not received any complaint from a public school that has come forward to me that they've not received their own quota of the core textbooks that are supposed to be supplied. And Leone, which is a DFID-sponsored program, supported government, especially in the provision of the English language core textbook, as well as the lesson plans that will aid the effectiveness of teachers, especially those that are teaching English language and mathematics. So those were supplied. Still on the focus on quality, over the years, governments normally forget what WAEC is doing. You must have heard over the print and electronic media the last time about WAEC not being paid. Yes, for the past 10 years, the commitment of the Sierra Leone government to the West African Examination Council was not honored. We have an amount of over 11 million United States dollars. That is quite apart from the amount of money that we are paying now for school fees. These are obligations that government is gradually now fulfilling. So we took the work of IEC very serious when it comes to the issue of promoting quality. Because you can teach, but at the end of the day, the method of assessment is very critical. Most of us seated here passed through the West African examination as an examining body. I'm sure we do not want to see the image of the institution being drawn into the mud like that. So we decided to take proactive steps in ensuring that our public examinations are conducted with the greatest amount of scrutiny. So that is why probably over the last few months you must have heard cries about examination malpractices and the rest. We are very much committed to ensuring that children receive the right kind of education, but at the same time we want them to have the certificates which they deserve. So there is a whole cartel about examination malpractices, and I want you to know that that is a challenge that we are facing, but I'm very much pleased to say that the leadership is committed to ensuring that we deal with that aspect, and that is why my deputy is currently at State House. The last examinations that are conducted, we arrested a number of people. We arrested teachers, we arrested principals, we arrested representatives of WAEC, we arrested private individuals. So it's a conspiracy. So we are not going to relent, and the president has directed that at his own level, the cabinet subcommittee level, the committee has been set up comprising the ONS, the Inspector General of Police, the Ministry of Technical and Higher Education, and also other stakeholders. We are going to take it as a national issue, and members of the Fourth Estate will have to be involved during the course of trying to deal with the situation, because we want to have a national dialogue on the issue, because we find out that some of the parents don't know the enormity of the problem when it comes to them aiding and abetting their pupils in engaging in examination malpractices. So the quality aspect of it, the books were supplied. Then we try to make sure that we operationalize the Teaching Service Commission, represented here by the Secretary. So the Teaching Service Commission is now responsible for the welfare of teachers, making sure that we professionalize the teaching profession. As I sit here, they've concluded the professional standards for teachers. Governments have approved the license for teachers for it to become the teaching profession. For a teacher to teach the next academic year, that teacher must receive a license certificate that is issued by the Teaching Service Commission, which means we would have scrutinized your certificate, ensure that what you present to us actually belongs to you, and at the same time we have other methods of determining that. Then we issue the teaching certificates to those teachers. So that has been approved by Cabinet. The draft of the certificate has been done, and we are in the process of trying to execute that. And we are doing that because we want to ensure that teachers who are teaching at schools, they have the necessary professional qualification. Henceforth, no untrained and unqualified teacher will be admitted in our school. We are currently replacing them. There is a consistent strategy to ensure we address that. We have a good number of our school system, especially in the primary school system, where over 60% those who have been teaching are trained and untrained and unqualified teachers. But we want to approach it with a human face. These are people that have provided services over the period, but now we cannot just come and ask them out like that. So that is why we are working with the Ministry of Technical and Higher Education to ensure that there is a there is a loan scheme available for people who want to go for advanced training, so that they will have that particular conduit for them to be able to make use of the opportunity and decide maybe to come back and enter the teaching profession. That is why that particular aspect is being delayed a bit. We got the support of UNICEF in this particular area. There we learn our development partners are working assiduously with us in ensuring that we improve on the quality of teaching and learning. The third component has to do with system strengthening. You see, many times we have wasted a lot of resources in education, but then the impact has been very low. The reason is simple. There has been over-centralization of government functions, especially in the field of education. Of course, you can understand if other ministries are not decentralized, you can understand. But for education, it's a must. So from the ministry's headquarters before this time, you have the chief education officer, the minister. But when you go to the district, you just have one officer, the deputy director of education. No other staff. So in terms of supervision, inspection, some teachers have taught for 10 years. One day, no inspector of school have been there to look at the professionalism they display in the school. That is a narrative that we are going to put an end. So now in terms of the structure, at the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, we have the chief education officer. Then at the district level, we have the deputy directors for education. That's for the Teaching Service Commission. We have IT officers, and we are going to recruit 160 inspectors, at least 10 per district, so that we improve on the surveillance of the teachers when they are doing their teaching and learning. So right from the ministry, we have the Board of Education. The Board of Education is the highest decision-making body to advise the minister generally on matters relating to education, where the Sierra Leone Association of Journalists have the representation. I don't know who is it at the moment. So from the Board of Education, we are going to re-establish the district education boards. After my presentation and the questions, we'll be moving straight to Poloko. We are starting with Poloko district with effect from tomorrow, setting up those structures, making sure that those identified to constitute the committee of education in that particular area are being briefed on their activities, what they're supposed to do at the end of the day in terms of their reporting activities that they have to do. So we'll be in Poloko from tomorrow, Friday and Saturday. When we finish here, we go to district by district. So we are doing this because we want to make sure that education service delivery is decentralized. From the district, we are establishing ward education committees. The ward education committee is the composition. We have all the political parties currently represented in parliament. That is, you see, the APC, the SLPP, the C4C, and NGC. Those that are in parliament. So they constitute representations there. Then the NGOs operating in that particular ward, they have a representation, and the minister will appoint the chairman for the ward education committees. Those ward education committees will monitor education activities at ward level. You find out that in some wards, you have one school that is there. So as a minister, when I was appointed, I am inundated with problems from politicians, private sector people, you name them, from journalists also. People will come, in my village, I don't have a school, you have to give me a school. The president will say, I have been confronted, I want a school. So this indiscriminate manner of doing things has to be put to an end. There should be a definite strategy whereby schools can be approved without necessarily having a connection with the minister. Otherwise, the system will not work. So from the district to the ward, and from the ward, we ensure that for primary schools, we strengthen the school management committees. It is mandatory for every primary school to have their school management committee, which is derived from the Parent Teachers Association. So these are all bodies that are going to be reactivated, and their functions are going to be clearly defined through a publication that I will be making. And these are the bodies that will be supervising the work of teachers in their various communities, supervised by the inspectors of schools that are going to be recruited. For the boards of governors, for the secondary schools, the system is a bit different, right? The Act makes provision for boards of governors, and those are responsible for the governance of education system. And the boards of governors, the composition has always been clear. You have the proprietors nominees, which are 4. You have the representative of past pupils, should be 1. Then the representative from local councils and the minister's nominees. Over the years, these boards have not been given the kind of function that they're supposed to perform. From the time we started paying school fee subsidy, some schools will have about 150 million per term in terms of school fee subsidy. But when it comes to the utilization of that, no prescriptions have been made in the past. And you meet a school that has received such amount, the school is still dilapidated. So we want to ensure that a maintenance regime is instituted, so that when it comes to our schools, every year people have to see that the schools are painted, so that at the end of the day, when a child is supposed to move from a primary school to a secondary school, he or she should be excited to see what is different from where he or she is coming from to where he or she is going to. So the boards of governors are going to be reconstituted. We are in that particular process, and the chairman of those boards will be announced. And I intend to look at the representation of those boards, to have specific meetings with them, like the Old People's Association. Every school has an old person that attended that. We want to make effective use of the alumni associations of these institutions, with a view to ensuring that they focus their attention in the development of the school. So that is for the education governance. So we have the Board of Education, then the district education committees, then the ward education committees. In all of these, the composition and the structures, especially for the district education committees, the Sierra Leone Association of Journalists is supposed to be represented, so that in terms of information sharing and the rest, we will always make sure that that is being done. So in a nutshell, I want to see the promise that was made by His Excellency the President. We did not promise buses in the first phase, but they have come, right? So those are what we refer to as like the bonuses in the new direction. It was not part of what he promised in the first phase, but the buses are here, like she mentioned. We've just determined the way they are going to be, allocated, and the routes that they are supposed to run. And I'm working on the law, what is expected of the parents, what is expected of the drivers, the attendant that is supposed to be there, where they should be parked. That's our own responsibility, as apart from the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education. All of this being said, that does not mean that we do not have challenges, right? We do have challenges in the discharge of all of this. The first one has to do with the attitude of the people, the reluctance to accept the change. Right? Even at the ministry level, you find out that people still are resistant to change, because when over the years power is concentrated in one place, there are definitely benefits that goes alongside with that. So when we want to make sure that that particular power is being decentralized, they definitely face challenges. But I think they are all very clear now that it is unstoppable, and we have to make sure that we decentralize. I have made the statement very clear to our development partners just now. I asked them to tell me what we can be proud of over the years for UNICEF, the DFID, the World Bank, the European Union. Still our learning outcomes are low. We still complain that our children cannot read, from children in class 1 to class 3 cannot read basic alphabets. So those cannot count. So it means all the efforts we have made over the years, we need to redefine them, because huge amounts of resources have taken place. So we've guided against having conferences in Freetown, in the Radisson Blues, and the rest. The focus should be at the school. What is happening at the school, what is happening in the classroom. That is the pupils and the teachers. For the teachers, we believe they are responsible for making the quality more effective. So that is why for the president, in the supplementary budget in 2018, the grade 5, the lowest cadre within the teaching profession that suffered, these were the ones that the president allowed for the Minister of Finance to increase their salaries. That was done. So in the first phase of the free quality school education program, those are the categories of teachers that are covered. In this second phase, I am very confident that the welfare of the teachers will be looked into. I decided that as a ministry, we reactivated the Teaching Service Trade Group Negotiating Council, which is the body responsible for the negotiation of terms and conditions of service for teachers. That body has been non-functional for over 20 years. When I was in the union, that was reactivated, and they met, they concluded the terms, especially the financial terms, and as I speak, government is taking active consideration, and the Minister of Finance will have to make a pronouncement on that. But we are very much conscious of the fact that the teachers' conditions need to be improved, because at the end of the day, whether you are a journalist, whether you are a police officer, whether you are that, you want your child to have a better education. So there are other challenges also. The other challenge that we have has to do with the systems itself. Some of the schools, their school fee subsidy is paid, but sometimes it goes to a wrong account. And those are just administrative, right? The other problem is that the way the country's development agenda has been structured over the years is also a problem. Now we pay teachers through banks. And you find out that in most villages, there are no banks. So when the salaries are paid, they are stored in some banks. And sometimes some of these teachers, where they live, there is no coverage for them to be able to find out whether, in fact, their account has been credited. So they traverse, they come, the money is not yet there. But the fact is that it has come out from the Ministry of Finance. So that accounts for sometimes the late payment of some of the teachers. So that has to do with the infrastructural configuration of the state. It does not have anything to do much with the ability of the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education. So the infrastructural setup is a huge problem. Finally, we want to make sure that we move to the age of technology. We've just made presentations in the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, where we want to introduce tablets in our schools. Discussion of having textbooks carried by pupils and the rest poses a huge problem, and we've done the calculations. When you look at the amount of money that we spend to have the core subjects, replacing it with a tablet that has the curriculum there, where teachers are doing, it's much cheaper than what we are doing. So we are in advanced stage in moving towards that particular direction, and it is something that is doable and in line with the President's vision of ensuring that the Directorate of Science, Technology and Innovation moves forward with the ministry's agenda in making sure that we digitize our systems, e-government. We are very much committed to that. So for now, this is what I have for you. I must say what the President promised for the implementation of the first quality. I mentioned in 98.1, I said 99.9 was done. I said the 1% that remain has to do with looking into the conditions of service for the teachers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. So much information. I know you guys are ready with your questions now, but before we come to the questions, I'll just quickly take off from the last point that the minister ended with. That's the age of technology, having to introduce tablets in schools, digitizing our system, and all of that. So which brings me to the next issue on the agenda today. Like I mentioned earlier this morning, the Minister of Finance, on behalf of the government, signed a concessional loan agreement of $30 million Now, the minister in his submission mentioned about the desire of the president, you know, the manifesto of the new direction being very clear on human development capital. Of course, we all know ICT is very central to all of that. We now have a Directorate of Science and Technology, which is a novelty in Sierra Leone. This is the first time we're having that Directorate of Science, Technology and Innovation in State House. We also have, as a ministry, we also have a Director of Communications that also deals with all things ICT. And a lot of effort has been put in making sure that that promise of His Excellency, having ICT as a backbone in this country, realized. Now we have this fiber optic cable and a host of other infrastructure that focus on making sure that we benefit from this all-important situation. Now, we all know that Freetown is not Sierra Leone, and many a time those of us based here in Freetown, have some sort of access to the internet, but it's not the same for other people based outside of Freetown. There are challenges, you know, from time to time, which is why His Excellency the President, on a trip to China, had discussions with the government of China to support us in this direction. As a result of those engagements, this morning, this loan agreement was signed, $30 million with the China Exim Bank, and it will cover phase 2 of the National Fibre Optic program. So Mr. Mumini Jallo is the Director of Communications here at the Ministry. We need to, he needs to speak to these issues. I mean, make it very clear the terms of the contracts, the intended impact, what phase 2 seeks to address, the status of phase 2, and of course the payments agreement, because these are information that are very critical to you, our colleagues in the media. We need you as partners in development to help tell the good stories, the good news about strides made by this government in changing the narrative of Sierra Leone. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite Mr. Mumini Jallo to come to the podium and speak to some of these issues.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. The Honorable Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, Madam Minister, I stand on existing protocols. Like Madam Minister rightly put, the priority of the new direction agenda is to create the enabling environment for the delivery of efficient and affordable ICT services such as mobile voice, data services, broadband internet, electronic governance system, digital broadcasting, and other value-added services. This will promote affordable and non-discriminatory access to these services for all in fulfillment of the government's universal access service obligations. And in many fora, His Excellency the President has reiterated that he will wish to be remembered as one who will leave behind a digitally inclusive society with digital technology as the means to unleash the innate potential of every citizen to leapfrog the country's socio-economic development. He is of the view that digital technology can be a key driver for promoting development across many dimensions, having transformative effect on how people live, work, do business, empowering individuals with previously unimaginable capabilities and global reach. This is consistent with the SDGs, Leave No One Behind, and is also aligned with the Africa We Want tenet of the Africa Union Vision 2063. So therefore, setting himself this big task during his visit to China for the Forum for China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAC 2018, amongst the many issues that he discussed with the president of China was how to develop the ICT technology infrastructure for this country. Because for us to actually benefit from the immense potential of ICT, there are certain foundational pillars that has to be in place. And one such is the infrastructure. You have to have a digital infrastructure in place. You had the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education talking about digitizing content, giving tablet to schools. If you don't create the enabling environment, the infrastructure in place for connectivity, how do you upload the content on those tablets? Then it becomes a white elephant. The kids will turn into a toy. But I'm sure the intention of the minister is for this to contribute to their learning environment and increase on the quality of the educational system in Sierra Leone. In the past, so His Excellency engaged the President of China, President Xi Jinping, and also the leadership of Huawei Technology. Huawei Technology is one of the leading telecom global solution providers in the world now. I think they are among the first 5 global fortune companies in the world when it comes to technology. Currently, they are second to Samsung in terms of mobile phone production, etc., etc. So he also engaged them. How can Sierra Leone benefit from those technologies that they are rolling out in other countries? But before this time, we had implemented 3 fiber optic projects in Sierra Leone. One was supported by the World Bank, which actually landed the submarine cable to Sierra Leone. That is the ACE cable that is at Salcab landing station. This was supported by the World Bank. So through that initiative, Sierra Leone is now connected to the rest of the world through a fiber optic cable. And what that means is that in the past, for us to be able to communicate with the outside world, we had a capacity like a small pipe water where all of us want to pass our message. But the fiber optic cable has now given us a huge volume of pipe that we can now transmit our messages. And those of us here will remember that in the past, we used to queue at SLET for international calls. We used to find it difficult to communicate. But at least in the midst of the challenges, especially like what Madam Minister was saying, in the Western area, we are able to now communicate via WhatsApp, via Facebook, voice messages, etc., etc. So that's what the ACE submarine cable has done for us, that opened up the capacity for us to be able to communicate. So the next fiber optic project that we had was the Nfb Phase 1, which was implemented by Huawei. This project actually covered laying the fiber cable from Lunge, Potloko, through Rogbere, Lonsha, Makeni, Masingbi, Sewafe, and Kwedu. That was the Phase 1. But added to that also, the government also received support from Islamic Development Bank through ECOWAS to implement the ECOWAS Wide Area Network Infrastructure Project, which actually connected Sierra Leone to its 2 neighbor countries. So through that project, we are able to lay fiber from Freetown here, the landing station, through Maishaka, Rogbere, Potloko, Kambia, Balamuya in the northern axis. And also from Maishaka branching onto Moyamba Junction, Teama onto Mokonde, but again, Teama on the highway, Bo, Kenema, Joru, Zimi. So that's connecting us to the 2 border countries. The essence of this is to provide what we normally call protection in case the submarine cable is cut, so that we are able to still communicate with the rest of the world through our neighboring countries. So what we are waiting for now is for Liberia to interconnect with us and Guinea to interconnect with us. Then we now have 3-pronged way to send out messages, either through the submarine cable, which is the primary source, and if there is any challenge with it, we can still communicate. You recall at one time there was a cut on the submarine cable and the whole of Sierra Leone was out of internet services for a number of days. So in order to avert that, that's why the West Africa Wide Area Network project was initiated. But you agree with me that even in the midst of all this development, we still have challenges in terms of connectivity, especially when you move out of Freetown. And also, the project that I have talked about, the network we are constructed in such a way that they are almost like a straight path. For instance, if you move from Potloko, go into Kono, it's a straight line. So a cut on one side will just exclude the rest of the other part of the network. So that single point of failure has been a major concern for the telcos, for the telecommunication operators, not to actually rely on the fiber backbone, because the value of the fiber backbone is that, one, it gives you a huge pipe to convey your traffic, and also even in the midst of the rains there will be no deterioration, because it's not like microwave, you know, the air that is moving, the wind will distort it, heavy weather will distort it. This is actual cable that is lying on the ground, and then it gives you 100 to 100 capacity to transmit. If you take 50 meg here, you are able to throughput it in both 50 meg without distortion. But the complaint has been that because of this single point of failure, these are business people, they don't want their network to go down, so they have been this dilly-dallying about latching onto it. So the previous administration negotiated a phase 2 just towards the elections, but this phase 2 was negotiated at 2.5% interest rate with a payment period of 20 years. So when the new administration came in, when His Excellency went to China, he expressed to President Xi Jinping that yes, we are interested in the project, but not at the current condition that you are giving us, because as a government we have promised our people for an efficient management of the state resources. So we believe that currently the project is not within our promise. And also the other thing with the phase 2 at that time was that it was only going to lay fiber. That is, about 700 kilometers of fiber was going to be laid during that phase 2. So the ministry, through the minister and His Excellency, informed Huawei that we can proceed with the project if you allow us to renegotiate the terms of the project. So that was agreed, and we have been able to renegotiate the project on the new terms. One, for the first time in the history of Sierra Leone, the government has been able to negotiate a concessional loan for 1%. Normally, concessional loans are for 2.5%, etc., etc. But the new efficient approach towards loan management, so we have been able to achieve that. Now, this new concessional loan that the minister signed today, the interest rate will be at 1%. So that's a novelty for the Ministry of Finance. And also, we are able to renegotiate the component of the project. Like I said, it was only one component, lay fiber. But the government said, no, we cannot continue to just lay fiber. We need to provide services for our people. So now this new component will now lay about 690 kilometers of fiber across the country. I'll name the district that will be covered. But added to that also now, we are going to do metro rings in the provincial capital district, Potloko, Makeni, Bo, and Kenema. What we mean by a metro ring is that you are constructing a highway, but when vehicles move on the highway, they get to cities, they want to branch off to other places. So in communication also, the terrestrial backbone is like a highway where messages move. But when they get to like Bo, how do you now take them to Bo City Council? How do you take them to Bo Government Hospital? You need a metro ring to fast track that connection. So for the first time, we are going to do provincial metro rings in the provincial district of Potloko, Makeni, Bo, and Kenema. So what this means is that now become easier for like Orange, Africell to now say, you know what, I can now easily actually connect communities in these areas in terms of high-speed broadband internet. The other thing that we are able to negotiate also is that, like what the minister was saying, apart from caring for the citizens, government also has obligation to ensure that its institutions benefit from technology. So we are able to also negotiate for an extension of the e-government network, so that for the first time we will start connecting the local councils. So in the project district that I will be calling, the city councils will be connected to the broadband internet, the district hospitals will be connected, and some schools in those localities to support the free quality education. So that was also another component that was added now to this project at the same cost that was initially negotiated, $30 million. The final component that was also negotiated is that, of course, the Honorable Minister will agree to me that going to cabinet is a mantle of carrying huge volumes of paper, and even developing cabinet papers is a lot of manual back and forth between cabinet secretariats and MDAs. So His Excellency is very much keen on making sure that that process is digitized. So this project is going to provide the infrastructure for the digitalization of the cabinet process, so that cabinet will now be conducted digitally. Ministers will no longer be carrying volumes of paper to cabinet. Everything will be digitized. They will be given tablets or maybe permanent stations, so that when they go, all they need to do is to use their credential to log in. All papers that are due for that cabinet discussion will be there, and then they can communicate. In the process of cabinet paper development also, the back and forth between cabinet secretariats and MDAs will now be digitized. So those were the components that we are negotiated for the project. The district that will be covered in this phase 2 will be Kwenadugu district. That is, the fiber will be run from Makeni, Fadugu to Kabala. Kailan district, that is, will be taking the connection from Mano Junction, Shegbema, Daru. The towns that I will be calling means actually access points will be provided in those areas to start providing immediate possibility for access. Daru, Pendebu, and Kailan town itself. Pujeon district, well, most people think Korbondo is actually in Pujeon district, but I was made to understand that Korbondo is actually Bond district. Korbondo? No, Tomabum, I think it's Tomabum. Okay, so this one will be the towns that will benefit in Pujeon district will be Pujeon town, Korbondo, and Zimi. Moyamba district, Moyamba Junction, Moyamba, Bangbatok, Ruta mining site. There are obvious reasons for targeting Ruta mining site because of the huge potential for government to get revenue from the use of the fiber by the mining companies. Matru, no, that's Bond. Ruta mining site. And in Bond district, we are connecting Matru John, and then we are hoping that through another technology, going to the mainland, we have to go through the sea. So, but we are currently in negotiation with Huawei to ensure that at least the island also benefit from this project. But that one has not been concluded. So, and for the provincial connectivity, Potloko, Makeni, Kenema, and Bo will benefit. So, in essence, actually, phase 2 is going to, 1, extend the reach of the fiber resources to the remaining districts that I have called. Secondly, to strengthen the existing network so that the single point of failure will be eliminated. So this project is going to provide double ring protection for the existing fiber infrastructure, so that a cut in fiber in any point will not disturb the flow of traffic. I mean, those who are engineers will understand what I'm saying. That in a ring network, normally if you don't have double protection, a cut in one side will just have the traffic flowing halfway. But this one, there is going to be double ring protection. Also, we have been able to negotiate with Huawei to replace the existing equipment because technology is moving fast. You realize that the equipment that we installed during the phase 1 are now like outdated equipment. So they have agreed to also upgrade the existing equipment in the infrastructure, so that when this project is finished, it's like we're having a new network. And also, we are of the opinion that the economic potential for this project is huge, because there is a standard research that has been done by the World Bank that for every 10% increase in broadband penetration, there is equal of 1.4% increase in the GDP. So we believe that by extending the fiber optic to all of these areas, the mobile companies will now be able to extend the 3G, 4G coverage in those areas. As currently, when you move out of Freetown, you actually lose your 4G, 3G connectivity. But I'm sure once the fiber optic is in these areas, and the project design has been done in such a way that we're actually targeting their footprint. For instance, the cable will go through the same route where the microwaves of the operating companies in Sierra Leone are currently. So that what we are telling them now is that instead of spending huge money on the microwave, you can now actually put your traffic on this highway, and you are guaranteed that if, for instance, you are taking your traffic from Freetown to, say, Bo, you see the number of microwaves they have. And this is what is increasing their capex, OPEX. So therefore, they are transferring that cost on the consumer. But we are now saying that instead of running those multiple baselines, maybe from Freetown, the only place you will need now a base station will be in Bo. You rely on the backbone to actually carry your traffic from here to Bo. When it reaches Bo, you can now collect it and do whatever you want to do, reducing their cost and eventually putting regulations in place. This is why the ministry is also now updating the legal framework for the ICT sector, because again, if you do all of this investment, you don't put in place the appropriate safeguards, then definitely people are going to take chance. Currently, the new telecom law is ready for cabinet approval, and this law now is going to make NATCOM more robust, so that at the end of the day, the environment will be predictable, so that you know, for instance, if government say 80% of your traffic has to be on the fiber backbone network, and NATCOM find out that no, you are still putting microwave around to carry your traffic, then you know what will happen, because the law will be clear on that. So in essence, actually, this project is going to strengthen, I'm sure it's going to deepen our broadband penetration and eventually increase on the socio-economic development. And this, we hope, will also lead to the establishment of small medium enterprise in the ICT sectors, because once you have these things running in those areas, even these people who are selling top-up will increase in those areas. It's even possible now. In fact, the new licensing regime that the government is working on now is, we don't want to just rely on these big multilateral companies to provide services. We are now thinking about creating community license, so that somebody can say, for instance, I don't have the capital to open a mobile company that will cover the whole of the country, but I think I can cover Putloko. So please give me the license to only operate in Putloko district. This small license will actually deepen the SMEs in ICT. And these are the kind of benefits we hope this project will give us. So on that note, I think the last thing that I will say is that the project is fully aligned with the National Development Plan that was launched. In that plan, we have Cluster 3, which is on infrastructure and competitiveness, and Cluster 3.5 is on improving information and communication technology. So it means this project is actually in line with the new directions, priorities, and also is in line with SDG 9. You know, we are also, as a country, are expected to put programs in place to address our commitment to the SDG. SDG 9 is actually, this project is also in line with SDG 9, which requires countries to provide digital infrastructure, etc., etc. So on that note, the project will be implemented by a team comprising of MIC, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Development, SALCAB, and the contractor Huawei. So basically, those are the information we have for you on the signing that took place today. I thank you.
I'm as not listen to the updates where the Deputy Minister of Information and Communication, when Madam Mamadi Gobe Kamara, where it concerning government activities. Inside the press briefing today, we began the Minister of Basic and Senior Education, when Alpha Timbo, as himself can give updates about the free quality education where His Excellency the President, retired Brigadier Dr. Julius Madabio, being launched last year. Me wake up with this program to not today. Me your name na Aisatu Smile Sisi. So till we meet again to another edition of the weekly press briefing where the Ministry of Information and Communication can get every Thursday na the Ministry conference room. I say tata.